Welcome to this explainer on what is rapidly becoming, honestly, one of the most fascinating stories in world football right now.
Welcome, everyone. We are looking at a club in absolute total transition. Today, we're unpacking how one single player's exit is practically pulling back the curtain on a massive club-wide restructuring at Liverpool. The implications here, they're absolutely staggering for the entire future of the club.
Right, let's unpack this, because what starts as a pretty standard conversation about a beloved center back leaving, it quickly spirals into this wild tale of financial hardballs, managerial sackings, and some serious boardroom friction.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. Why break up a championship team? It's the central mystery of this whole thing, isn't it? Just last season, the 2024-2025 campaign, this exact team conquered English football. They won the Premier League. And now, honestly, it feels like they're suddenly tearing themselves apart from the inside out. Exactly. It is genuinely shocking to see a squad that reached the absolute pinnacle so recently just fracture like this. In modern football, when you win a title, you usually expect a 3 to 4 year window of a dynasty building phase. You lock down your core players, you make minor tweaks, and you go again. You absolutely do not expect a demolition derby right after lifting the trophy.
Section 1. Ibrahima Konate's emotional exit and the human cost of football business. So the very first major domino to fall in this demolition derby is Konate, and he is walking away as a free agent.
Which is a totally wild scenario when you actually think about it. We're talking about a player who spent 5 incredibly successful years at Anfield. He arrived as this highly touted young talent in a £36 million move from RB Leipzig.
He literally won it all with the club. But behind the scenes, the cold realities of the football business clashed incredibly heavily with the very real human cost of his departure.
The sheer emotional weight behind Konate's farewell message is just profound. He wrote to the fans, "Losing my father earlier this year was one of the hardest periods of my life. During my toughest moments, I gave everything for the badge."
It's absolutely heartbreaking when you contextualize what he was going through off the pitch. He also referenced the incredibly painful loss of his brother, Diogo. Yet his commitment to the club, it never wavered. I mean, imagine the mental fortitude it takes to step onto that pitch in front of 50,000 screaming fans and perform at a literal championship level while carrying an unimaginable personal burden.
Yeah, and his contribution wasn't just emotional, it was historic. Notice that massive 183 figure? That's 183 appearances, which officially makes him the highest-capped French-born player in the club's entire history. And we really have to talk about the physical toll of that number. The Premier League is arguably the fastest, most physically demanding league in the entire world. Playing 183 games at center back means you are constantly battling the strongest, quickest strikers on the planet, often twice a week, for 5 brutal years. And to put that into perspective, 154 of those matches were played right alongside Virgil van Dijk, forming the absolute bedrock of one of Europe's most intimidating defensive partnerships.
For sure. And his trophy cabinet tells the exact story of that success. It is completely full. A Premier League title, an FA Cup, 2 Carabao Cups, and a Community Shield.
The whole shebang.
Most professional footballers will play a 15-year career and only dream of lifting just one of those trophies. He did it all. He leaves an undeniable legacy on the pitch. But, as beautiful as the football romance is, we have to pivot the conversation to the cold, hard business realities behind his departure. The numbers off the pitch tell a very, very different story.
Which brings us to our next chapter, Section 2, Record Revenue, Record Wages, and the financial realities at Anfield.
Yeah, this is basically where the fairy tale ends. Despite Konate stating publicly that he actually wanted to stay, contract talks broke down completely.
And it wasn't about a lack of desire, it was about an unbridgeable gap in wage valuations. The club simply decided they literally could not meet his salary demands. And the numbers here highlight exactly why this happened. We are looking at staggering, record-breaking figures on both ends. On one hand, a phenomenal £703 million in revenue.
That is massive. But then, look at that second figure, a £428 million record wage bill. That is the highest wage bill in the entire Premier League. Staffing expenses have practically doubled in under a decade.
Right, so the logical question is, how does a club make record money and still say they can't afford to pay a star player? Well, it's because that bloated wage bill creates a hard ceiling. Even with all that money coming in from the Premier League title and commercial growth, the sheer cost of keeping the squad together forced the owners to make some incredibly tough, frankly ruthless choices regarding who actually gets paid. Exactly, and this number right here, £241 million, shows exactly where the owners decided to allocate those resources instead of paying Konate.
Yep. That massive figure represents the combined transfer cost of bringing in Alexander Isak for $125 million and Florian Wirtz for $116 million.
So the crucial point we're looking at here is opportunity cost. In football, if you spend hundreds of millions on one area, you literally cannot spend it somewhere else. The money was absolutely there, but it was strictly earmarked for restructuring the attack. They actively prioritized breaking transfer records for forwards over meeting the salary demands of their veteran center back.
So where does a world-class defender go when he walks away for free? Section 3, the Real Madrid connection and a new Galacticos strategy. Reports strongly indicate Konate is closing in on a move to the Spanish giants, making him the latest piece of a very specific and honestly very terrifying new approach for the club.
Absolutely terrifying. The Galacticos strategy has historically been about ruthlessly hoarding the biggest, most expensive superstar names in the sport, basically building a real-life fantasy team by throwing cash around. But Madrid has seriously evolved that concept recently.
When you look at Madrid's emerging transfer strategy, a really scary picture forms for the rest of Europe. Just look at their recent targets, Kylian Mbappe, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and now Ibrahima Konate.
It's absolutely brilliant business. Instead of paying hundreds of millions in transfer fees to other clubs, they are poaching the absolute elite talent of European football entirely on free transfers or heavily reduced early releases. And then they just give that saved money directly to the players and wages.
Talk about a cheat code. And for Konate, it means reuniting with his former teammate Alexander-Arnold, basically taking that incredible Anfield connection straight to the Bernabeu.
Oh, and here is a totally fascinating wrinkle to this whole saga. If Konate heads to Madrid, he will be playing under none other than newly appointed manager Jose Mourinho. A shock return to Spain for Mourinho. Though there is a catch that highlights just how chaotic football politics can be. The entire deal, Mourinho and potentially Konate, is pending the club's presidential election on June 7th. Literally, imagine packing your bags and moving your entire life to Madrid, but your entire career move relies on a handful of board members voting a specific way in a boardroom election. Wild, right? But assuming Florentino Perez is re-elected, this blockbuster move gets the green light.
Now, let's shift this explainer's focus away from the pitch and look squarely at the dugout, because Konate isn't the only massive exit we're talking about.
Far from it. Section 4, sacking Arne Slot, the managerial casualty. We have to address the shocking weekend news that has completely rocked the fan base, the outright dismissal of the head coach.
Talk about a roller coaster tenure. On one side, you have the 2024-2025 season. Slot comes in and wins the Premier League in his debut campaign. He is a hero, practically a legend overnight.
But then, the 2025-2026 season, they finish 5th, an astonishing 24 points worse off.
It's a massive drop. And it really underlines the immense pressure modern managers face. Winning a title buys you exactly zero loyalty these days. The literal moment you suffer a single season of inconsistency and miss out on that highly lucrative Champions League qualification money, the owners will make an immediate U-turn. He was sacked instantly.
So put it all together. You have no manager, your star center back is leaving for Madrid, and the defense is in absolute shambles. How on earth does this team plan to field the competitive backline next season? That is the multi-million-dollar question, which leads us perfectly to Section 5, the defensive rebuild, and patching the massive holes at the back. It is suddenly the most urgent priority for whoever actually takes over next.
And the terrifying reality of this rebuild becomes really clear when you look at the shifting backline. You're losing massive, proven veteran experience in Ibrahima Konate and Andy Robertson.
Right, and you're replacing them with incoming youth, Jeremy Jacquet and Giovanni Leoni. Are they talented? Yes, for sure, but they are completely unproven at this elite level of English football.
Not to mention, both of these young investments are currently recovering from severe injuries, a shoulder surgery for Jacquet and an ACL tear for Leoni. Replacing seasoned winners with teenagers coming off major surgeries is a truly monumental gamble for the club.
Which completely explains why the club is aggressively monitoring the market for immediate elite help. And that leads them right to Atletico Madrid's Marc Pubill.
And looking at his stats from the 25-26 La Liga season, it's totally obvious why they want him. He's winning over 71% of his duels and almost 78% in the air, nearly 4 recoveries a game. He is an absolute wall defensively.
Exactly. He's precisely the kind of dominant force they need to replace Konate. The only problem? He comes with a completely eye-watering £433 million release clause. And just to be clear, that doesn't mean he is actually worth that much. In Spain, clubs set these release clauses astronomically high as a hands-off warning to force any negotiating teams to pay an absolute premium. But given the desperation, Liverpool might have to pay up anyway.
They honestly might be forced to spend big because the remaining veteran backline is incredibly precarious right now. Let's just quickly run down these uncertainties. Virgil van Dijk is turning 35 this summer. Joe Gomez is entering the final year of his contract, meaning the clock is ticking and he could literally walk for free soon. And Reece Williams has already confirmed his departure. The foundation of that championship defense is virtually gone, and an elite defense relies entirely on chemistry and communication. When you rip out the core pieces like that, you destroy that cohesion. Immediate reinforcements aren't just a luxury here. They are absolutely critical for the survival of the team.
But as we're seeing, this isn't just about shuffling players around on the pitch. We have to move the narrative up to the executive level.
Exactly. It brings us to Section 6, the boardroom shakeup and redesigning the club's DNA. This is a complete structural overhaul from the very top down. Honestly, the boardroom chaos is arguably more intense than the squad rebuild.
The runway for the front office is shrinking incredibly fast, creating what we can basically call the executive countdown.
Right now in 2026, Slot is sacked and the pressure is massively on to finalize advanced talks with their managerial target, Andoni Iraola. But look, just one single year ahead to 2027, both the sporting director Richard Hughes and the football director Michael Edwards see their contracts expire. The very architects of this massive rebuild are on a ticking clock. If they don't get this right immediately, they are out of a job too.
And that ticking clock is causing intense friction behind the scenes, largely because the Grand Master Plan isn't actually working out.
Exactly. Michael Edwards was brought back specifically to spearhead a new multi-club ownership model for Fenway Sports Group. Now, for context, a multi-club model is where one parent company buys several teams across different countries. It allows them to easily share scouting networks, develop young players, and bypass certain financial constraints.
But those grand ambitions have completely stalled after approaches to buy French clubs failed to materialize.
So you have these high-level executives who were brought in to oversee an entire global empire, but right now, they are stuck micromanaging a massive crisis at a single club. It's a recipe for serious tension.
And that front office tension brings us to the sheer scale of the task ahead this summer. Just look at this potential exodus.
It is staggering. We already know about Konate and Robertson, but you also have the emotional farewell of Mo Salah. Curtis Jones is being tracked by Inter Milan. Federico Chiesa is expected to return to Italy.
And players like Harvey Elliott are waiting to see where they fit under a totally new manager. The sheer volume of elite talent potentially leaving Anfield means the executives have to replace almost half a squad in one single window. And you can't just buy a whole new locker room and expect them to understand the system or have chemistry with each other by August. It is an enormous undertaking. Which leaves us with one final, very provocative question to wrap up our discussion today. Will this massive, ruthless structural reset launch a brand new dynasty, or will it trigger a total uncontrollable collapse?
It's the ultimate high-wire act in modern sports. They have actively sacrificed loyalty for financial strategy, they've sacked a title-winning manager, and they are betting absolutely everything on a completely untested new vision. We will be watching incredibly closely as this summer unfolds to see if this monumental gamble actually pays off. Thank you all for joining us for this explainer. We will see you next time.